That's Queen and a Kind of Magic. It's BBC Radio Oxford. Now, coming up a little bit later, you'll hear from best-selling author Susie K. Quinn. She's going to be on the show talking about her first foray into non-fiction about lies that we tell mothers. And also, Nigel Slater's autobiography has been turned into the play Toast. A very good play it is as well. The actor who plays Nigel will be here later ahead of the play coming to Oxford. Now, earlier on last week, I got to step foot on a very special boat, Captain. After a personal tragedy, Stephen Carr decided to ditch the land and buy a boat to drift peacefully down the Thames in Wallingford. But that's not all. Stephen uses his boat to teach his passion, bread making. And I donned the captain's hat and made my way portside to hear more of Stephen's story.
Hello, my name's Stephen Carr. Welcome on board Adelante, my home and my boat. And Adelante is Spanish for advance.
Steve, this is the most utterly perfect day to be on Adelante, but we are cruising along the river. Life doesn't get better than this.
It doesn't, no. I love the river. I've only been on the river a few months now, but my life is dominated by the river now. The wildlife, I wake up every morning on the river. This is my reality. Keeping the boat afloat all the time. It's just everything's about the river now. I'm going, in this time of year, going swimming every day. It's fabulous.
It's just the tonic you needed when a tragedy struck your life.
That's true, yeah. My wife passed away in November of breast cancer last year. We'd met 5 years before, and I thought my life was settled. I was living on the land, normal life with her 2 children, and her cancer came back, unfortunately, after 2 years, and then she passed away after 3 years, and so, yeah, I decided I needed to completely start a new life. So, moved on to the water.
I dare say the water and this kind of lifestyle has really helped with your grief.
It does help, yeah, especially the trip, moving it from up north took 2 weeks, and I had 2 friends with me, and that was a massive distraction. That was in January, so that was a big distraction. But no, it does, being somewhere like this, and does help with that grieving.
And in terms of life then, and your career and work, what were you doing? Because your career, your job has completely changed as well.
Well, my job is the same. I'm a technician in the events industry, but the bread making thing I've always done as a hobby. It's not been my full-time job, but now I just do it on a boat instead of doing it at home. So
have you always made bread?
I've only been making bread for about 5 or 6 years. So if you'd asked me 10 years ago, in 10 years you're going to be on a boat in the Thames teaching people to make bread, I would have said, "Are you sure you got the right guy?"
So where did this idea ultimately come from?
I got into making beer, which is the same process, and a friend gave me a book on how to make bread in 5 minutes a day about 6 years ago, and I realised you can't make bread in 5 minutes a day because the most important ingredient in bread is time. And I just got obsessed with it, and I wanted to learn everything there was to know about it, the science of it, the history of it, everything, And then after a while I thought, well, I could teach this, I really want to share these skills. They found evidence of bread making going back 100,000 years ago in a cave in Mozambique. They found 2 stones with grains in. So really, when I teach my classes, I always think, well, I'm at the forefront of 100,000 years of passing on the skills of making bread, albeit on a boat, but it doesn't matter, So you're right at the pinnacle of passing on information that's gone back 100,000 years.
That is amazing that you are passing that on, but I should imagine also, the lifestyle, as we mentioned, that has been a huge tonic to you, but also making bread, baking itself, It's great for mental health.
Yeah, it's magical. The kneading is a very meditative process. My company's called Zen Bread because I try and incorporate the meditation into the dough kneading. And it's a magical experience, really. A magical process just for the physics of it. A bit of dough can triple in size in about 45 minutes. It's almost magic, from 4 simple ingredients, water, flour, yeast and salt. It's magic.
Steve, tell me where we are on the river right now, because I'm looking at you and I'm absorbed in our conversation, but look around us. This is absolutely magical. There's some moorhens over there.
Yeah, there is, and there's a lovely family of swans that live around here that I've got 6 cygnets that come and visit me every day, and I always give them some bread, and there's lots of ducks, not so many geese in this bit. So we're just south of Wallingford, and we've just gone past the Oxford Boathouse, because Oxford University Boathouse, because it's the longest stretch of the Thames with no locks on it, so that's why they all base themselves here. Someone's just jumped in, and some swimmers just going past. It's a great time of year to be jumping in the water.
Hello!
Hi!
Hello, you're on the radio.
How's the water?
It looks gorgeous.
So
You must see a lot of that in there.
yeah, especially up near. I'm moored near Wallingford Bridge, so it's very busy around there with the school holidays. But and also along this stretch, what's interesting, and it's a great thing to lead me on to talk about the history of bread. There's a lot of World War II pillars along here. In fact, I don't know if we'll see one on this trip, but the old concrete pillar boxes used for defence, and they built along the Thames. They built 5,000 of them in 1940, and they're still here because they're virtually indestructible. And that leads me on to talk about, because during the war we had something called the national loaf. It was illegal to make white bread during the war because they wanted to use everything in it, and it had to be brown. And also, interestingly, it was illegal to sell bread on the day that you baked it. You had to leave it till the next day because they didn't want everyone gorging on fresh bread and eating the whole loaf, so they made them wait a day until it was a bit staler.
In some ways, and you have to kind of draw positives from tragedies and just the biggest low points in your life sometimes, and you have to get on with life, don't you, when you have experienced a tragedy, one such, of course, in your case, losing your wife. But, you know, in many ways, it feels like this is what she would have wanted. This is her legacy, this boat, the bread making, your change of lifestyle in many ways.
Some money. She paid for half this boat. She left me some money, which allowed me to do this. And
So
she knew I was going to do this. She knew she was dying, and she knew what I was going to do, and go and live on a boat. So she would have loved it. Yeah, it's such a tragic shame that she can't share it with me, because she would have loved it. We've got to go and get some bread out the oven.
Absolutely, absolutely. I spotted some more wild swimmers just then as well, and there's another family enjoying some lunch on the boat. Hello, everybody. Hello. You see, everyone's so friendly, Steve.
You can't be miserable on a boat. When you're on a boat, you have to wave at people. See, look.
Where do you think you'd be, I mean, right now, in terms of your headspace, had you not discovered and perceived this lifestyle?
I would have done what was expected and normal of me, which was go and get a flat in Reading to be near Helen's children, which I'm still in touch with. Still have a lot, still have them in my life, quite a lot, Tilly and Charlie. I'd be living in a flat in Reading, but I don't think I'd be anywhere near as happy as this. People think I'm crazy.
There's nothing crazy about this, right? You said that we've got some bread to take out of the oven.
Yes, let's go and do it.
That's Stephen Carr from Wallingford, seconds away from getting a fresh loaf out of the oven, and my oh my, it smelled good. We'll be back with Stephen and the fresh bread after Rod Stewart, You Wear It Well. It's BBC Radio Oxford. Back to the Thames with Stephen Carr from Wallingford, who started Zen Bread, a bread-making course on his beautiful narrowboat. Stephen showed me the fruits of his labour with a fresh bake.
Sun-dried tomato and fresh basil.
Right. Wow.
This is I'm entering this into a competition this year. It's absolutely delicious.
So is this a recipe that you've developed yourself?
No, I can't say I do. No, I can't. That's an old traditional one. But the basil and sun-dried tomato together are like Romeo and Juliet. They're just fantastic.
Well, the smell of that coming out of the oven, it just hits you, and it's absolutely glorious, and even more sort of pungent on a day like today when there's little airflow as well. But it's absolutely delicious.
We'll do the old hollow air test.
Go on then.
Yeah, very hollow. Yeah, perfect.
Oh yeah. Oh, that meets with my approval.
Leave it on the rack to cool down for a few minutes.
So how does Zen Bread actually work in terms of your classes?
Maximum 4 people, and they last 4 hours, and they go completely from start. They mix the ingredients, they knead it, and with an hour's proving, and then they knock it back and they make their own bread. So I don't even touch the bread, and they take their own loaf of bread home with them. I can cook 4 loaves at once in there, and they take their bread loaf home with them.
And while you're moving, you do this?
Yeah, we're completely moving all the time. We do pull over for about 20 minutes, and we have a nice picnic. We get out and we make some dough balls and cheese bread sticks that we have, and a salad. And sit out and do that, and then we turn around and come back, and the bread's breaking on the way back.
Because it just adds to the experience, doesn't it? And actually, we've got your Captain Jenny driving the boat at the moment. She's at the helm.
Yeah, she's good. Yeah, she's a good pilot.
What are we going to do now? You mentioned kneading bread.
Do you want to do some kneading?
Come on, let's do it. Let's do it. Right. Okay. It strikes me that you are literally leading the ideal life. You've got this beautiful boat on this beautiful river. Oh, you're putting a penny on me now. Thank you very much.
It sounds like a cliche.
Right, we got some dough in there. Looks great. Right, so talk me through this.
Okay, dough.
Yeah.
salt, yeast, water, flour. So
Let's start with the type of flour that you favour.
okay, this is I use organic flour. Organic because there's no pesticides on any of the wheat, so it's much healthier.
Does that make a difference actually to the rise?
It does. You don't want any. What we're trying to do, and what the Real Bread campaign that I'm involved with try and do, we're trying to push for as much natural ingredients as possible, no artificial anything, and that includes pesticides when it's being grown.
Well, there's nothing like the smell of bread, and certainly that's been filling Adelante since I've been here. So, right, I'm going to get on with some kneading right now. Now, I remember, I have to say that I don't actually make a lot of bread.
That's good.
But my mother, I remember, she used to be working bread all the time on a piece of marble.
That's it.
When she was...
So what we're doing, when you're kneading, what you're actually doing is there's two proteins in flour, glutenin and gliadin, and when combined with water they make the gluten. Now what you're doing is when you knead, you're making those long gluten strands very stretchy, so that when the bread goes in the oven it doesn't lose its shape and it doesn't splodge everywhere. And it becomes what's known as a viscoelastic substance.
You kind of can notice actually it just changing.
Yeah, it does.
It's the way it feels actually, and becoming more elastic as you are kneading it. I mean, how often do you knead your dough for?
10 minutes, ideally 10 minutes. But
it's hard work, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it certainly. And it sort of opens your lungs. It's good for you.
If I'd had an argument with someone today, this would be the perfect
you
thing.
Take it out on that, yeah. No, it's good. It's good physically, and it's good. I find it a good mental thing as well.
And all the while, I'm just looking out of the window and
changing landscape.
Oh my goodness, we are sort of, my eye level is the water, and it's absolutely stunning, Steve.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm very, very lucky where I live.
You didn't know how your life was going to be on the river, because it's just, you take a leap of faith. It's a bit of a sort of stab in the dark, isn't it, really? But, what would you say have been the most eye-opening things, the best things so far about this lifestyle?
Oh, gosh. The swimming. In this weather, on the hottest day of the year, I've been in the river twice this morning already, just simply to cool off. We've got a set of ladders that go over the side.
You're going to go over the side in a minute?
Well, not now, because we're moving, but but when we get back to mooring, I may well jump in. It's a great way of cooling off.
Now, how am I doing with this dough?
The dough's looking great. Now, if you pull each end of it and stretch it out, now you see how it's going back in. If you look over it, see how it's now going back into its shape. That's called a viscoelastic substance, and that's basically what we're trying to do. If you left it long enough, it would go back into a ball.
Right.
So that when it goes in the oven, it stretches rather than kind of goes everywhere, and it holds its strength. So that's what we're doing with that.
Yeah, excellent. Okay.
So well done. Yeah,
thank you very much.
That would be ready to go in the oven.
I'm pleased with that. Thank you very much.
Wash your hands.
So, I want to get outside. I want to finish my water. Let's do this. In fact, let me take my pinny off. Do you know what I love, and what is so serene and makes you feel so good, is just the ripple, the sound of the ripple. Let me just... What's been the biggest surprise for you living on a boat?
Biggest surprise? I think the boating community, which obviously changes because people move around a lot, that's been quite a surprise. But I am quite proactive in going and meeting people and saying hello. And actually, I'll say the one thing is getting in touch with wildlife. I have to say it's not something I've been particularly interested in for most of my life. But now I'm on the river, I want to know what that bird is. And there's a kingfisher lives in the bank right near where I moor, and it's beautiful. It comes and sits on my mooring rope and tweets and looks through the window at me. So
they are like Scarlet Pimpernel kingfishers.
Amazing.
So many people, so many Twitchers actually would love to get a glimpse of a kingfisher, and they sit for hours, don't they? But of course you've seen one quite regularly.
And they live in a hole in the bank, kingfishers, and it's right next to where my gangplank is on the river.
you wouldn't trade this in for the world, would you now?
No, not now. No.
How can people experience Zen bread? How can they come and just it's not just about the bread, it's about the boat, it's about the whole experience, it's about experiencing wildlife on the river, maybe something that somebody coming here to do it for the first time would never have experienced before.
Yeah, the one they can go on my website. I run classes all the time, zenbread.co.uk. I'll take anyone, happy to have anyone who's interested in bread, and if they're interested in boating, they can get their hand on the tiller and have a go on the boat if they want as well. I don't mind.
Well, let's moor up by a pub, Steve, and then I think that would complete my perfect day. Thank you.
Okay, no problem, Kat. Pleasure having you on board.
Ah, that was Stephen Carr from Zen Bread, who took me along the river and treated me to a fresh tomato and basil loaf, and delicious it was. But before I could say goodbye to Stephen, and bearing in mind it was the hottest day of the year when we met, he started stripping off, and I was ready to wade out, and he was ready to wade out into the drink.
Hottest day of the year. There's only one way to cool off. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much for
Pleasure
having me.
You on board.
Enjoy the water.
I will, thank you. Oh, lovely.
Ah, beautifully refreshing.
BBC Radio Oxford.
Your time saver travel.
Now let's get the latest on Oxford.